So within the dry tropical region is oil. It's mixed media in the sense there is oil, there is acrylic, this kind of interesting acrylic, which is an ink acrylic here, and it runs, so it's got an eyedropper, and I've placed it at the top there. And the other mixed media is this other kind of, again, another kind of an acrylic, which is a bit thicker, and that goes onto the top here. And then there's the oil paint, which is just laid on. So it's got 4 different mediums on this. It's a framed piece with steel. It was just fiberglass, so it was really flexible. Now you can just stand it up. When it's just fiberglass, that cannot stand like that. That'll just flop over. So this gives it its structural realism. And there's some motifs. So like this is glows at night because it's got this powder that actually absorbs light and then radiates that when it's dark. And this is like the body of it. So it's like the glowing mind. And this is these yogi figurines. So this was created around 2014 of lino cut, and then I placed a fiberglass resin to create these hards. Another fiberglass figurine. I think I made it out of beeswax, and then I made a mold from that. So this is just putty to place around these figurines, and that's when Oh yes, and this here is from my days of block printing on fiberglass. This one really does have a yogic theme because it's got Sanskrit, so it's embedded in here. So in a sense, the artist is beholden to no one in particular, but everyone, meaning the world political system. And that's to do with this utilitarian international governmental body. So there is that sort of sense of the hierarchical structure that's within the arts system, just like with the science system. So how does a person then just move away from that? Otherwise you are embedded within a particular structure, and you see yourself within that peer sort of structure. And that's where the outsider artist sort of comes into it. And I think a lot of people that, genuinely looking at the creative process, as a humanistic process, are opting out from that sort of highly structural system, because that's basically what contemporary art is. It's a highly comparative, peer-reviewed structural system. You've got class art systems where the class is like the regional artists, and then you get the state within the state, and then the nation state. And then international artists, peripheral artists, finds that they are not going to engage in trying to advocate heavily for a topic at the expense of their creativity. Art, in the sense of a humanistic endeavour, would have been something that our ancestors had done way before civilization became in its form of agricultural sort of systems. So you could argue that arts became a commodity around maybe Mesopotamia and also early India, whereas if I take the idea of millions of years of human history prior to that, it was probably to do with the hunter-gatherer societies, and it would have been quite a different state of affairs. And arguably, have to sort of, we're not there, the experimental nature and the intrigue of colour would have just been there, like a childlike fascination, when you find an ochre and you play with that. So this sense of intentional agency and experimenting with that. That's what I see a lot of the arts in its intrinsic value is. So if I'm intrinsically into the arts, it's that kind of feeling you want to capture. So, like once I've been experimenting for years, I've built up a particular style. And so now I'm quite happy with that style. As we're moving more into a world of autonomous agents, with the artificial intelligence revolution, which is well here now, we'll see that humans can collaborate with their AI counterparts and in a sense gain again that artistic independence. So I see the AI revolution as actually not taking away from our independence as artists, but actually giving the artists a new way to then dismantle themselves from establishment. Whereas if I take the idea of millions of years of human history prior to that, the art establishment, they can move their identity away and then again immerse themselves into the hypercolour fields and textures, And then through AI, that can be given some cultural context, because the AI is a large language or a large image model and has all the reference. And so within that, you'll find your niche. So you can see the individual, it's back to individualism. Art was, in that sense, in the modernity, an individualistic practice, like with the abstract expressionists at the high point of individualism. And I'm happy to be part of that. I'm happy to be sort of part of that sort of journey into the individualistic artwork, because that's where I've been traversing, the outsider sort of system for quite a while. And the Yoga Sutras in themselves, which I've been working on this particular piece here. So yogi is very concerned with their individuality. It's like a version of hyper-individualism within the jiva. So the jiva is part of the Atman. The Atman is the universal consciousness, but the jiva is like the split, the reflected element. And that reflected element has individuality within the prakits. And the prakits are all the material stuff, but at one point there's the jiva, which is a particular animation that's functioning through these prakits. And these prakits are like the categories of material density. So the jiva is somehow straddled between prakriti and man, or the universal consciousness, and there sits the jiva. So, and the best expression is prakrits of the body, and the body is then these pranic fields that animate from the material universe, and basically pull the soul, pull the jiva back into that material grossness, which is a tamas. So the soul is then in the rajas, which is activity, but is moving towards this sattva, or the pure consciousness. So there's this sort of notion of individuality is like this rajic nature of movement, of mind fluctuation. There's a very individual sense of then, soul, rebirth, and then emancipation from rebirth.